There are moments in life when everything changes. Not gradually, but in the blink of an eye. One second you're living your routine. The next, you find yourself face to face with a reality that shatters all you thought you knew. Today, I'm going to take you on a journey beyond the physical world. A journey that has changed my life forever. Whether you're skeptical or searching for answers, what you're about to hear might be the message your soul has been waiting for. It was a day like any other, or at least it seemed like it. The sky wore the soft hues of dawn, and my morning routine unfolded just like always. Coffee brewed, clothes were folded. My hospital ID badge hung from my neck as it had for the past 20 years. As a nurse working in intensive care, I was familiar with emergencies. I had comforted families, fought for lives, and stared death in the eye more times than I could count. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what was coming. It would be a shift, not just in my career, but in my very soul. And it all began with a single moment, an intersection, a green light, and a truck I never saw coming. There's a strange peace that comes just before tragedy. Some call it intuition, others call it grace. That morning I felt it. A calm so deep it felt unnatural, like the world was holding its breath. As I drove to the hospital, I noticed the roads were unusually empty. I glanced at the time, 5:47 a.m. I remember that number like it's etched into my DNA. It was the last ordinary moment I would ever live. I approached the green light at the intersection near St. Michael's Hospital. I should have passed through like any other day, but something else passed through instead. A truck, speeding, ignoring the red light, and my world exploded. The impact was violent. Metal twisted like paper. Glass shattered into chaos. My body slammed against the door, ribs cracking, air rushing from my lungs. Time slowed, every sound magnified. I wasn't just in the crash, I was watching it. I saw myself in the driver's seat. I floated above it all. A strange separation took over, as if I had been pulled out of my body and placed in the audience of my own suffering. It was surreal, terrifying, and peaceful all at once. My thoughts dimmed, my heartbeat faded, and then, silence. Not the absence of noise, but the presence of something bigger. Paramedics later said I flatlined, clinically dead. But that's not what it felt like. It felt like awakening, like shedding a heavy garment I didn't realize I'd been wearing all my life. I wasn't floating anymore. I was rising, not into the sky, but into something deeper, brighter, wiser. It was like being embraced by the universe, not in parts, but all at once. I remember thinking, this isn't the end. This is the beginning. That thought didn't come from fear or confusion. It came with a certainty I can't explain, only share. That's why you're here, to hear what I saw. I moved through a space that didn't have a floor, or walls, or even color as we know it. But it was more real than anything I've seen with my physical eyes. Everything shimmered with intelligence. Light wasn't just illumination. It was a presence. I could feel it moving through me, reading me, loving me. Imagine every fear, every regret, every sorrow you've ever carried simply dissolving. Not erased, but understood. That's what this place did. It understood me completely, and yet, it loved me anyway. If you've ever wondered what perfect love feels like, it's this: to be fully known and still completely safe. One of the first things I realized was that I wasn't alone. The presence around me wasn't just ambient energy. It was aware, and it wasn't one being. It was many, watching, welcoming. They didn't speak in words, yet I understood them perfectly. Their communication was instant and pure, like thoughts fused with emotion and memory. They weren't human and they weren't ghostly. They were something else, something ancient. As I absorbed their presence, I began to see them more clearly. And that was when I saw the wheels, the eyes, the movement, the divine. I'll never forget what happened next. It marked the threshold between this world and another, between body and spirit, logic and mystery. And it's just the beginning of what I need to share with you. If you're still here, if this message is resonating deep within you, that's no accident. You were meant to hear this. You were meant to remember. Stay with me. Because what lies beyond that moment will not only challenge your understanding of life, it may restore your belief in the sacred. And I promise, the best is yet to come. The space around me began to pulse, not with light or sound in the earthly sense, but with something deeper, like rhythm and memory had fused into one experience. I was no longer observing from a distance. I was within something, inside a consciousness that held every truth I had ever searched for. It didn't come as answers to questions, but as understanding itself. I didn't need to ask where I was. Somehow, I already knew. This was the realm beyond the veil, not heaven as painted in art or imagined in fairy tales. This was sacred geometry in motion, truth made tangible, and in that moment, I knew. This was real. From the distance, or was it from within me, something approached. It wasn't a being in the way we normally perceive form. It was a presence, clothed in purpose and awareness. The closer it came, the more it shaped itself into something I could comprehend. That's when I saw them, the first beings of light. Their form constantly shifted between complexity and simplicity. They were like wheels within wheels, radiating light and covered in what looked like eyes. They were alive, thinking, sentient, and yet they weren't frightening. I felt awe, not fear. Their presence carried a message. They had been watching long before I was aware of them. These were the Ophanim, celestial beings described in ancient texts, but now here, undeniably real. They didn't speak, and yet their rotation spoke volumes. Each turn was a revelation, each pulse a truth. They transmitted understanding directly into my being. They showed me how they moved through time, how they observed and adjusted events without ever interrupting free will. I saw moments in my life I thought were random, but they weren't. They had been orchestrated, not controlled, aligned. These beings were not myths. They were guardians of sacred timing. Every prayer I had whispered they had recorded, not with ink, but with motion. And then a shift occurred. Like the change of a key in a symphony, the atmosphere adjusted. New figures entered, larger, more radiant, more structured in form. These were not wheels or orbs. They had wings, vast, layered, alive. Their faces, 4 of them, 1 human, 1 lion, 1 ox, 1 eagle. They stood in perfect balance between worlds. These were cherubim, not the babies painted on chapel ceilings, but titanic beings forged in glory. As they moved, their very presence rippled through space, bending reality. Each of their faces conveyed a different aspect of divine intention: power, wisdom, service, vision. The cherubim didn't need to prove their authority. Their mere existence was proof. Their eyes held galaxies. Their wings shimmered with time itself. I couldn't look at them directly, yet I couldn't look away. One of them stepped forward, or perhaps it was my awareness shifting toward it. And in that instant, I saw something I will never forget. I saw myself, not the physical me, but the essence, my purpose, my calling, my pain, my joy, all of it laid bare before them. And still there was no judgment, only recognition. These beings knew who I was beyond my roles, beyond my failures, beyond my fears. Suddenly everything went still, not empty, but still in the way a deep breath fills silence with meaning. And then from the center of the light, I saw him, a figure of indescribable majesty. No need for introductions. My soul knew who he was. It was Jesus, not the figure from paintings, not the idea from doctrine, but him, radiating with love so thick, it wrapped around every broken piece of me and healed it without a word. His gaze locked with mine, and I knew he saw everything, every mistake, every wound, every silent scream I had ever released into the dark. And yet, his eyes held nothing but love. He didn't speak aloud. The words came straight into my spirit. He said my name. Elizabeth, you are here because it is time to remember, he said. And just like that, I was taken, not walked, not pulled, but taken into what he called the kingdom realm. There I saw layers of reality intertwined like living threads. I saw angels, not as fiction, but as warriors, architects, guardians, messengers. I saw how they moved with divine precision. Each had a role, a mission, a unique design. There was no randomness, no guesswork, only perfect orchestration. Jesus showed me how the Ophanim spun the wheels of time, how cherubim protected the boundaries of truth, and how seraphim sang the structure of heaven into existence. The deeper he took me, the more I realized I was not in a vision. I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't hallucinating. I was being educated, shown what the world has forgotten. The realm of spirit isn't distant. It's near, interwoven, living within every atom of our being. We walk through it blind, mistaking coincidence for chaos and silence for absence. But it is there, always has been, always will be. Jesus showed me how even my darkest days had been illuminated by angels I never knew were there. Some stood by my hospital bed, others wept when I wept, and some fought battles on my behalf while I slept. We arrived at what I can only call a divine observatory. From there, I saw lives unfolding like woven fabrics, each person a thread, each moment a knot or release. And through it all, angels moved like currents of purpose. They weren't just passive watchers. They intervened when necessary, strategically, precisely. I saw how a moment of prayer shifted an entire timeline. I saw how a stranger's compassion redirected someone from suicide. I saw how my own life had been spared dozens of times, not by luck, but by design. Every breath I still drew was a divine echo, a calling to speak, a purpose to fulfill. Jesus lifted his hand, and I saw the seraphim, flaming beings made of pure sound and light. They didn't rest. They worshipped, not with repetition, but with waves of new revelation. Every holy they cried came from a fresh unveiling of God's infinite glory. They weren't singing to God. They were announcing him into reality. Every word they released shaped the structure of heaven. Worship, I realized, was not music. It was architecture. The universe held together by praise. And in that moment, I wept, because I understood. My voice mattered. My worship shaped something far beyond what I could see. Jesus turned to me, and the universe hushed. "You must return," he said. "Not to escape this place, but to awaken others to it." I didn't want to leave. Who would? Here, everything made sense. Everything was love. But then I remembered my children, my patience, my promise. And in that sacred tension between divine presence and human calling, I said yes, not with my mouth, but with my soul. Yes to purpose. Yes to testimony. Yes to the responsibility of the awakened. And in that final moment before returning to my body, I knew I would never be the same again. When I returned to my body, it wasn't like waking up from a dream. It was like being squeezed back into something far too small. My eyes opened slowly, and the first thing I heard was the beeping of machines. ICU monitors, oxygen flow, nurses moving quietly around me. But I wasn't fully here. Not yet. A part of me still vibrated with the sound of seraphim, still burned with the vision of wheels and wings. And though my body was broken, my soul was awake in a way I had never known. The doctors called it a miracle. They said I shouldn't be alive. But I knew it wasn't chance. It was divine orchestration. As I lay there, unable to speak, unable to move, the memories surged like waves. I saw again the moment the truck hit me. But now I saw it from another angle. I saw the angels, positioned around the car, absorbing the blow, slowing time, creating a bubble of intervention. It hadn't just been an accident. It had been a battleground, and heaven had intervened. I saw surgeons working on me, unaware their hands were being guided. I saw shadows trying to steal my breath, and light driving them away. Every detail I remembered only confirmed the truth. We are never alone, not even in the darkest hour. Once I could speak again, I began sharing my story. Not because I needed attention, but because I was commanded to. Jesus hadn't saved me to remain silent. He had saved me to speak, to awaken others, to shake the sleep from the eyes of souls who've forgotten where they came from. At first, people listened with curiosity, some with skepticism, others with tears in their eyes. I realized quickly that this message wasn't about convincing anyone. It was about reminding them. Because deep down, every soul knows. It knows what light feels like. It knows what home feels like. And heaven is home. I began to notice something else. The more I shared, the more others began to remember their own encounters. Near-death experiences, dreams, strange protections they couldn't explain, sudden peace in times of chaos. Things they had dismissed for years began to rise to the surface. It was like one voice of truth created an echo in thousands of hearts. That's the power of testimony. It breaks the illusion of isolation. It reminds us that the spiritual realm is not fiction, it's framework, the foundation beneath everything we think is solid. And when that truth is spoken, darkness starts to crack. I also saw resistance, not just in others, but within myself. There were moments I doubted, moments I wanted to go back to normal. But there is no normal after seeing eternity. There is only forward. There is only obedience. The weight of what I saw pressed on me, not to crush me, but to ground me, to make sure I never treated this experience as a story, but as a commission. Because the moment I begin to speak, heaven moves. Angels lean in, hearts open, and someone, somewhere, hears exactly what they needed to hear to take their next step. That's why I'm still breathing. That's why you are still listening. One night, as I sat alone in my room, I felt a presence return. Not visual, not even audible, but unmistakable. A warmth filled the room. Peace wrapped around me like a cloak. And deep in my spirit, I heard it again. Remind them. Remind them they are seen. They are protected. They are deeply loved. I wept, not because I was afraid, but because I was honored. To carry a message so holy, so necessary. This isn't about religion. This is about relationship. It's about remembering that heaven is not waiting on a cloud. It's moving beside us, fighting for us, whispering to us in every moment we choose to listen. So now I speak. Every day, every chance I get. Not as someone who has all the answers, but as someone who has seen beyond the curtain. And what I saw wasn't fantasy. It was realer than reality. And it's calling you now, not just to believe, but to live like the spiritual realm is as real as your reflection. Because it is. The veil is thin. The angels are near. And Jesus, He is closer than your next breath. If you've ever doubted your worth, if you've ever wondered if your life has purpose, let me tell you with every fiber of my being, you are here on purpose. You are known. You are deeply, eternally loved. If you've made it this far, I don't believe it's by chance. You were meant to hear this, to remember that your life is not random, that the pain you've walked through has never gone unnoticed. There is a realm more real than the ground beneath your feet, a realm where angels walk beside you, where your prayers are collected like treasures, where your name is spoken with love by the one who created you. You may feel broken, you may feel overlooked, but I'm here to remind you, you are seen, you are protected. You are loved more deeply than you can comprehend. Heaven is not far. Jesus is not distant. And the same power that brought me back from death is reaching for you now. Not with judgment, but with invitation. He's not asking you to be perfect. He's asking you to respond. So respond. Don't wait until tragedy wakes you up. Don't wait until life forces you to question everything. Choose today. Choose light. Choose truth. Choose Jesus. Say yes to the one who never stopped pursuing your heart, not for religion, but for relationship. Because following Him isn't about rules. It's about coming home, to peace, to purpose, to the life you were created to live. If this message spoke to your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear it, someone who's questioning their worth, someone who feels like they're drowning in the silence. Be the voice that reminds them they're not alone. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel, not for the numbers, but so you can stay connected to truth. Stay awake. Stay aligned with what truly matters. Follow Jesus with your whole heart, with your questions, with your wounds. Bring it all to Him. He's not afraid of your doubts. He's the answer waiting behind them. Talk to Him today. Whisper if you have to. He's listening. And if you ask Him to show you He's real, He will. From my heart to yours, thank you for listening, for staying, for opening your spirit to what's beyond the scene. You are not just a viewer, you are family. And as we walk this journey together, I pray you feel the presence of God more and more every day. You are never alone, never forgotten. And this is just the beginning. Stay connected, stay hungry for truth. And until next time, keep watching, keep praying, and keep your heart open to heaven. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video.